They say if a stranger offers you something for free, you should never take it. What they don't tell you is, sometimes refusing is worse. Because the night I walked away from a woman holding a black beaded necklace, something followed me home. And before this story ends, you'll understand why she was crying, why she begged me to take it, and why I'm no longer sure the thing that crawled inside me ever truly left. When my girlfriend Ella recommended we go to the local Renaissance Fair, I absolutely jumped on the idea. I hadn't been since I was a kid, but I always remembered loving it. The cool vendors, the food, the awesome jousting. Matches, it was everything a kid could love. My recent hyperfixation on medieval times and fantasy also definitely helped to drive my excitement for the event. I also had been needing a good excuse to get out and be social again. I had found myself too busy with school and work to get out and actually live. Both of us called up a bunch of our friends and worked out a time for us to meet up there and enjoy the festivities. We even both ordered and threw together simple medieval costumes to wear to the event. I was so excited for the day that would lead to such torment. The day itself was very eventful, enjoyable even. The Ren Fair was everything I hoped it would be and more. Everyone had a great time watching the shows, shopping, eating overpriced food, and playing games. I remember loving getting to have Ella holding my arm by my side the whole time. We had been together for some time now. She had become such a fixture in my life that I couldn't imagine a world without her. While my time at the fair was spectacular, I had this weird feeling from the moment I walked through the gate that I was being watched. After the first few minutes, I blew off the feeling, thinking it was ridiculous. I assumed I hadn't been getting out enough. I had been too focused on my courses, assignments and work, and had pushed off being social. I figured the feeling was just a bit of social anxiety after being cooped up too long. I chose to ignore it, and after a while the feeling waned to near nothingness. After the sun went down and the group was getting ready to leave, that was when I first saw her. A woman, probably in her mid-30s. I couldn't explain why my eyes were drawn to her. She wasn't dressed up or anything. She was in normal, everyday street clothes. She was scanning the crowd intensely. Her expression was fixed with intensity. She looked over the crowd how I would expect a mother to look over a crowd after realizing she lost her child. Her eyes met mine as she combed over the crowd, and immediately the uneasy feeling at the start of the day came back worse than before. This time, though, there was something more. A mix of dread and sadness crept into my mind as our eyes locked. The woman's eyes widened with a more desperate look than before. I can't explain it, but I felt hypnotized by the look she gave me until one of my friends spoke up. "So are we getting out of here or what?" I looked away from the woman to my friend, who must have seen the uncomfortable look on my face. "Whoa, Mason, you all right?" he asked. I looked back to the crowd, but the woman was gone, and with her disappearance, the uneasy feeling faded as well. "Yeah, sorry, some lady was just staring at me really weird," I said with a chuckle that tried masking discomfort. "Yeah, let's get out of here." We all said our goodbyes in the parking area and went our separate ways. As Ella and I were making our way back to our truck, I heard a woman's voice approaching from behind us. "Excuse me." Sir. I turned around in time to see the woman from before approaching. It was darker in the parking area, but she was close enough that I could see what looked to be black beads in her hands. "Yeah? How can I help you?" I asked. "For you," she smiled. But her voice was monotone. The woman held out the black beads that I could now see made a necklace and was covered in what appeared to be white runes. I took Ella's hand and continued walking to my truck while responding, "No, thank you. I already spent enough money inside. I don't need to spend anything else." She continued behind us, insisting, "Please, just try it on, sir." She sounded more desperate now. "I think it will be good for you." I got Ella inside my truck and began walking to the driver's side, trying to avoid eye contact with the strange woman and reaffirming that I wasn't interested. I couldn't explain it, but the woman being so close to me now was driving me insane. It was like my emotions were being gutted. The closer she got, the worse I felt. I wanted nothing more than to get away from her. As I reached for the handle of my door, I saw the woman's hand reach out and grab my arm before hearing her pleading, "Please, sir, I know you don't understand, but I need you to take this and wear it. There is—" I pulled back my hand roughly and snapped, "Don't you dare grab me like that. You weirdo. I have no clue who the hell you are or why you want me to have your stupid Etsy project, but it's not happening. Go find some other loser to sell your cheap junk to." It was as though her touch flipped a switch in me. The sadness, the gutted feeling, was replaced with anger that exploded out of me. I climbed into my truck and slammed the door. Immediately, I felt off about what I had said. Even in incredibly uncomfortable and less than favorable situations, I am always very calm and never aggressive or insulting to people. Ella, seeing how odd I acted and how upset I was, placed her hand on my arm. "Let's get home, okay?" I nodded and began backing out of the parking space. After backing out, I put my truck into drive and looked forward to now see the woman standing in the parking space we just pulled out of. In my headlights, I could see her clearly, clutching the black beads to her chest with a face that looked like she hadn't slept in days. As the light shined on her, I noticed something else that I hadn't before. Her eyes were filled with tears as I looked into her sorrow-filled eyes. For a moment, I considered going and taking the necklace from her. However, this feeling was quickly replaced by the same abnormal anger I felt before. "Crazy bitch," I hissed under my breath before speeding off. That night was the first night the dream came to me. The memory of it fragmented nothing more than fading flashes, an empty void, a dark forest, a twig breaking behind me, turning to see what it was, and then waking up. Dreams are a strange thing. The memory of the dream was as though I had no feeling of fear, but upon waking from it, I was left in a cold sweat, breathing as though I had a near-death experience. I grabbed my phone and checked the time, 12 a.m. Exactly. Things started getting strange over the next few weeks. To say my luck was bad would be an understatement. It started off small. My phone would go missing, only to find it a few hours later in a place I had already looked, glasses being too close to the edge of the counter and falling off, those sorts of things. As time went on, though, the misfortune became more serious. I'd get ready for work only to spend 30 minutes looking for my keys, only to realize my wallet was now missing right after I found the keys, making me late and putting me in bad standing with my boss. I would go to submit an assignment for one of my college classes just to find the files I was using somehow got corrupted, and I would have to start all over. I even had weird stuff like multiple birds flying into my windows and breaking their necks, something that always upset me as a big animal lover. These things happened sparsely in the first few weeks, but after the first month, they became more frequent. Every time these misfortunes would happen, I would feel anger and sadness welling up more and more. All of this was further fed by tiredness that came from being woken up every few days at exactly the same time by a dream that made no sense. Once those emotions subsided, I would be left with a growing emptiness in me. I'm ashamed to say it, but the stress and anger lead me to push everyone away. I suddenly had no time for friends and little time for Ella. When I was around the people I cared for, I was left with this deflated feeling that made me a husk of the happy person I once was. After 2 months, I felt like I had become a completely different person. I've never believed in the paranormal. I loved the idea of ghosts and spirits, but I never believed those things could actually exist. I chalked up what was happening to me as a string of bad luck mixed with mood swings from stress and lack of sleep. Ella was the first one to suggest something paranormal might be happening. Unlike me, Ella was actually open-minded to the idea of paranormal stuff and even believed in it to at least some extent. With my terrible luck and even worse mood, she wondered if I somehow got into something bad. I don't know if she fully believed it herself or if she was grasping at anything to get her boyfriend back. There are a lot of things in this world that we can't explain, and tons of people have encounters with things that they swear are otherworldly. What if something is messing with you? Ella said, showing me an article on curses and hauntings. I'm ashamed to say, but I laughed at her when she suggested it. I don't know why I did it. I always try to hear her out on everything with an open mind, but hearing the paranormal suggested made something inside me stir. It was so out of character and mean-spirited of me, but I laughed at her. Are you serious? I asked sarcastically. Yes. Okay, cool. What is it then? Was it Casper or the gnomes that kept hiding my keys? I'm being serious. No, you're not. My voice raised. You are sitting here bringing up fairy tales and magic to explain to me why everything in my life sucks right now. All I want is to be left alone so I don't have to listen to people make excuses for something that is just bad luck. It was a lie. I didn't want her to go. Why am I being such a jerk? I thought. I'm just throwing out ideas. I'm trying to help you, she said quietly. Well, at least I'm not the only one losing my mind. Immediately I came to my senses about how awful I was being. I tried to apologize, but the damage was already done. If you want to be miserable, you can be, Ella said, but you don't have to make everyone miserable with you. She stormed out while I tried backpedaling what I said, digging a hole deeper for myself. When Ella slammed the door behind her and I was alone in my house again, the sinking feeling of guilt was almost unbearable. I stood there for a few minutes, pacing around the kitchen, looking at my phone, debating if I should call her and try to make things right. Ella was the only person who was trying to help me, the only person who knew everything going on in my life, and I pushed her away for trying to be there for me. Why did you push her away? I thought. You're so pathetic. You let a little bad luck drive everyone you care about away. You're worthless, less than worthless. You would have more use in the ground than going on with this miserable excuse for a life. I'd never been suicidal in my whole life. These thoughts, they were alien to me. Yet for a moment they made sense. My head was flooded with images, all the ways I could do it. Feeling that way, hearing the voice in my head say these things, it was terrifying. The depression and guilt I felt in that moment was almost unbearable. I put my phone back in my pocket and I fell on my hands and knees and sobbed. And there, in my sorrow, grief and self-pity, I noticed something. The room seemed darker. No, not the whole room. Just a small area shadowed around me. What? I gasped, looking at the strange shadow around me. It didn't make any sense. I was lying right under the kitchen light. The only way there could be a shadow around me was if someone was behind me blocking the light. Immediately, a feeling came to the forefront of my mind, one that I had been experiencing for weeks, but was so faint that I didn't even notice until then. I was being watched, and whoever it was right behind me. I spun around with my hands in front of me. I expected to see some person dressed in all black with a knife or gun, but instead, I was faced with nothing but the glaring light bulb of the kitchen light fixture. The shadow was gone, but the feeling of not being alone was stronger than ever. I shot to my feet, my still wet eyes jittering around the room, looking for a sign of anyone. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound threatening, even though whoever would have been there was just listening to me cry like a toddler. "I'm not messing around. I know someone is here. Come out and face me. I demand." I really wish I hadn't. After I finished speaking, I heard something in my kitchen cabinet, the sound of glass breaking. At first, it was a small crack. 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 Then I heard a glass shatter. Then another. "What the hell?" I whispered in a shaking voice, frozen, unable to comprehend the impossibility of what was happening. Suddenly the cabinet flew open, and shreds of broken plates and glasses were thrown out towards me. I ducked when the cabinet door opened, so most of the glass missed me, but a few shards managed to land on the top of me and left a few cuts on my scalp and arms. Immediately, I ran out of the kitchen and into my bedroom. Even though I couldn't see it, I could feel it, its presence. It was inches behind me as I ran. It was like I could feel heat radiating off of it as I ran through the entrance to my bedroom, slamming and locking the door. I moved inside the bathroom to find something to treat my cuts. I reached for my phone. I needed to call the police, to call Ella, to call anyone who could come and help me. My phone was gone. What? No. I whimpered as I patted myself all over, looking for my phone. I had put it in my pocket. Where the hell could it have gone? As I looked over my bedroom for my phone, a loud thud came from my door, followed by another and another. The thuds were getting louder, and I could see the door start to buckle and shake under weight of whatever was doing this. I knew whatever the thing was, it was going to get into the bedroom eventually. In my desperation, I locked myself in the bathroom with the lights turned off. I heard the bedroom door crack and then break open. The silence that followed the sound of the door breaking was maddening. I couldn't hear footsteps or breathing. I could see from under the door the light of the bedroom flicker before hearing the bulb shatter as I was drowned in complete darkness. The immersing silence was broken by the sound of the doorknob to the bathroom being tested gently, followed by 3 quiet taps. Please, I don't know what you want. I don't know what I did wrong. I'm sorry. I cried softly. Please, just leave me alone. I just want you to leave me alone. My pleads were met with the sound of something hitting the door hard before falling to the ground. At first, I wondered what it could have thrown at the door, but my question was answered a few minutes later as a familiar ringtone filled the quiet room. It was my phone. What's more, the ringtone was a special ringtone I set up for when Ella calls me. The help I needed was calling me. All I had to do was open the door and answer. Maybe it was waiting right outside the door, or maybe it had already left the room. There was no way for me to know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't open that door. My help would have to wait. I bandaged myself up the best I could before I laid on the cold floor and cried until all the energy left my body and I somehow fell asleep. There, I dreamed. I was falling through a black void. I could see my body, but everything around me was as black as an empty night sky. I've never had a fear of heights, but I've never been the most comfortable around them either. Fear of the eventual sudden stop grew and grew as I plummeted. I screamed as I fell. I pictured my friends, my family. I pictured Ella. I didn't want to die. Suddenly, the rushing wind on my back and feeling of falling stopped, replaced with the crunchy cushion of dead leaves and the chirping of crickets while I looked. Up at a forest canopy covering a bright night sky, it was as if I was never falling to begin with. I stood to my feet, the fear of the falling and the memory of the presence in my home still weighing on me. However, in the calm of the forest, I remembered that I had been here before. Almost every night, the falling, the forest, it has plagued my mind every day for weeks. Only this time it was clearer. I had more understanding of where I was, and that I was asleep on the bathroom floor. Crunch. I remembered this. A noise approaching from behind, one that if I turned to face, the dream would end, a mistake I didn't want to make. Crunch. As the noise drew closer, my fear grew. However, the presence behind me had an air of calm, of peace, of comfort. It felt different from the thing I was running from moments ago. Why are you doing this? I asked. Crunch. Please, just let me go, I cried. I just want to be okay again. Behind me, I heard a voice from my memory that I had forgotten, a voice whose memory shot to the forefront of my mind. The voice of the woman from the Renaissance Fair. Come find me, she said sternly. How can I find you, Maria? Maria, I knew her name. She never told it to me, but I knew it somehow. Come find me, she said again. I turned to face her only to wake up on the bathroom floor. I didn't know how long I had been asleep for, but I needed to get out of the house. I needed to get to Ella. She could help me find Maria. I opened the bathroom door, picking up my phone and checking the time. 12:12 a.m. My room was a mess, my bedroom. Door was broken open. My pillows and bed were shredded. All the lamps and light, bulbs in the room were broken. A pattern I assumed would spread throughout the house. As I moved out of the bedroom, I opened my phone to call Ella. She wouldn't like being woken up, but she would understand. As I rounded the corner, into my kitchen, I dropped my phone in the shock of what I saw. In my mind, I assumed this presence that was tormenting me was formless. Something that could physically affect things but not be seen. I don't know why I thought this, but that assumption was dashed as I looked at the monster in front of me. The thing stood between me and the door leading to the garage. It was tall, enough to have to hunch over to stand in my kitchen, making it well over 8 feet. Tall. Despite its height, the being was unnaturally slender, having the same width, dimensions of an average thin person. Its skin, if you can call it skin, was like ink. It looked wet and oily. A light from the street shimmered off of its black form. Its head was shaped similar to a bird's. It was round with what looked like a hooked beak over what I can only assume is a wide, gaping mouth with no teeth. I turned to run, too afraid to even scream. Before I had even made 3 steps towards the back door, the creature had grabbed me. Its long, slender hands had wrapped around my head and pulled me back, forcing me onto my back. I could feel it now. Its skin was slick and wet, like grabbing at latex covered in dish soap. It placed its hand in my mouth and forced it open. I could taste it, like the taste when you accidentally breathe in sunscreen mixed with cinnamon. Then I felt it, pouring into my mouth. It was as though the thing was melting down my throat. I choked, I cried, but I couldn't move. Even as the monster shrank and melted into me, I could still feel its strength holding me down. Eventually, the stress of the situation became too much and I passed out. When I woke up on the floor the next morning, I felt like I had the worst chest congestion possible. I jumped to my feet and coughed over the sink, coughing up a mixture of phlegm, blood, and a black oily substance. I called Ella and told her that I needed to see her in public right then. I told her that I was sorry for what I said and that she was right, and that I needed her help more than ever. She could have said no, she could have called me crazy, but she didn't. She just asked how she could help. I assumed the thing knew more people would get involved if it started throwing things around in public, and since it waited until Ella left the other night before lashing out, I imagined it didn't want more people involved. So I figured being in public would be my best shot at keeping it restrained. I met up with Ella at a coffee shop and explained everything to her. The cuts, the dream, what the thing did to me. I don't think she fully believed me at first, but her mind changed when I coughed up the strange black liquid into a napkin. I think it's trying to break me down, I said. Why? What does it need you broken down for? I have no clue, but it's working. I'm not myself anymore, even you've noticed. That, Ella sipped her coffee. And how do you feel now? Terrible. How so? It makes me want to die. What? Ella's eyes widened, setting her coffee down. Yeah, like when you left the other night. I think the thing was trying to convince me to... I hung my head, unable to finish the sentence. What about that woman? Ella asked. Maria, I don't know. She has been there since it started, though, I answered. Do you think she could have started all this? Maybe. Or maybe she wants to stop it. All I know is that she wants me to find her, so that is what we're going to do. It took a while of scouring Facebook and Instagram before we found her. Turns out there are a lot of Marias in my area. But eventually there she was, Maria Windsor. Her page was filled with spiritualist crafts and inspirational messages. She looked happier in her pictures than how I remembered seeing her, but it was her. I sent her a friend request, and within a few minutes she accepted and sent a message. It was an address with the words, "Get here quickly." When we arrived at the address, we saw it was just an ordinary house in a completely unassuming neighborhood. Despite its unassuming nature, the thing that had latched onto me did not like me being there. The coughing was getting worse and worse the closer I got to the house. Walking up to her front door was an ordeal in and of itself. Eventually, I stopped at the steps to the door. I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't stop coughing and spitting up that vile black liquid. At a certain point, I questioned if this was how I would die, on the doorstep of a mystery I would never understand. As my vision started to go dark, I saw the door to the house open and the fuzzy image of a woman approaching me. When I came to, I was lying on a couch with Ella staring at me from across the room with a worried expression. Sitting on the coffee table in front of me was Maria. "It's nice to see you again, Mason," Maria said with a small smile. "Maria?" I groaned, still waking up. "Here, drink this," she said, handing me a glass of water. I sat up and took the water from her. It was then that I noticed the necklace of black beads around my neck. "You got here just in time. Any later, and it would have started fully taking you," Maria said, her voice very matter-of-fact and direct. "What is it?" I asked. "Some say evil spirit, some say demon. It's something non-human, not from our plane, something that hates us." "Us?" I asked. "Humans," she replied quickly. "It hates people." "Why?" Maria shrugged. "Who knows? It could be a number of reasons, but it and things like it don't usually speak to us candidly with people." "What does it want?" I asked quietly. "Your death." Her words cut me like a knife. I looked around the rooms. It was filled with oddities like crystals, incense, burners, sigils, herbs, and different colored strings. I could also see religious paraphernalia scattered throughout the room, things like crucifixes, rosary beads, and what I assume was holy water. "Who are you?" I asked. "Someone who wants to help you." "But why?" "Because I know what it's like to lose someone to this thing, and I don't want to see anyone else suffer because of it." Maria looked at Ella, who was clearly still, shaken up from what had happened on the doorstep. I reached up and touched the necklace. I could almost feel warmth radiating off of it. "This wards it off," I muttered. "That's why you were trying to give it to me?" Maria frowned. "It would have. But judging by the black shit you're coughing up, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the thing has already infested you. At this point, all it does is weaken it." "How did you reach me in my dream?" I asked. "Astral projection," she said. "I tried almost every night to reach you. The problem is, the spirit is a strong one and it would block our link. Your girlfriend filled me in on the night I was able to reach you. My guess, the spirit used up too. Much energy torturing you, and it wasn't strong enough to block the link." "What can we do to fix this?" I asked. "At this point," Maria said, "the spirit is too close to taking you over. We're going to have to get it out of you by force." We had seen and heard of exorcisms in all sorts of fictional media. I never believed it was a real thing, let alone that one day I would be the one strapped to a table, shirtless with what I can only assume is a witch, and my girlfriend standing around me. The room was decorated with more oddities than the living room was. The 2 doors in and out of the room had ornate crucifixes hanging over them, and the whole room was lined with red string. The shelves in the room were covered in bottles filled with different herbs and spices, and the edges of the floor were covered in a pristine line of salt. "This will be a very unpleasant experience for you," Maria said somberly. "Your mind will be taken closer to the spirit's world. You will see and feel things that are imperceivable to us. It will be a lot to take in, but that is why it is good that she's here." Maria said this while looking at Ella. "She'll keep you grounded." Despite the gravity of the words Maria was speaking to me, her cadence and delivery were like that of a doctor describing an invasive surgery to a patient. She spoke like she had done this many times before. I squeezed Ella's hand. "I'm ready." Maria winced in a way that told me I wasn't. "Then let's begin," she said calmly. Maria began to burn incense and chant quietly in a language that I couldn't understand. I gave Ella a worried glance just before the smell of the incense accosted my nose. Neither Maria nor Ella reacted to the smell, but to me it reeked of rot and spoiled milk. I could feel its smoke burning in my lungs. The smell was accompanied by an equally strange sight. The room suddenly looked as though everything was completely covered in shadow. It reminded me of when your phone is on, but you don't touch it for a long time and the screen goes dim before turning off. The sight and smell were enough to freak me out. I was breathing heavily and squeezed Ella's hand tighter as she looked down at me with a nervous stare. After a few minutes of this, I began to feel a stirring in my chest. I needed to cough, but I couldn't sit up to cough the mess in my lungs out of me. Then I felt it, a pressing on my chest. When I looked down, though, I realized it wasn't something pressing on my chest. It was something inside of my chest pressing out. I could feel the subtle touch of fingertips rubbing against the inside of my ribcage. "What the hell is that?" I whispered. Maria continued her chanting, and Ella just squeezed my hand, looking at the spot on my chest that I was looking. I could now feel what felt like the palm of someone's hand pushing up on my ribcage. The discomfort it caused was unnatural. I lurched on the table and let out a yell. Maria's chants grew louder as Ella stumbled back, frightened by my screams. I looked down to now see several small pointy objects pushing out the skin between my ribs. I screamed out and looked away as black, inky fingertips broke through the skin with a hideous pop. I could feel small streams of liquid streaming down my sides. The strangest thing was that despite feeling the pressure, there was no pain coming from the wounds, only the mental anguish from watching my own body's mutilation. I watched in horror as the fingers retreated back into my chest, as I felt two palms now pressing up on the inside of my chest. After a few more moments of hearing nothing but my screaming and Maria's chanting, a new horrifying sound came to my ears, cracking. I could hear my ribs breaking inside of me as the pushing continued. I couldn't bear to look down as I heard the tearing of my skin, sounding like dull knives going through wet leather. I looked around the room in panicked agony to see Maria and Ella with sprays of my blood across them. However, Maria kept chanting and Ella stayed still. As I felt my chest open more, I could also now feel something much bigger than hands pushing through. I looked down just in time to see the head and shoulders of the spirit push from my mangled torso with an awful screech, my crimson blood running off its shining black exterior. Its piercing cry made my ears ring out in pain, the first true pain I had felt since the exorcism began. The pain from the demon's scream worked its way down my body. It was as though it woke up a part of me, so I could now feel the pain radiating from the damage it had done to my chest. I closed my eyes and screamed out in pain, begging for the anguish to stop, wondering if there was any way out. When I opened my eyes, the being was bent down over me, half of its body still submerged in me. Its abominable head just inches from mine. I could feel its offer running through my soul. It would take the pain away. It would end the suffering. All it wanted was for me to give it control. For a moment, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to end this nightmare, to get away from everything. Death was preferable to me than this. I tensed my mouth, prepared to scream my answer, to let it know that it had won, to let it know it had broken me. Then, in all the pain and agony, I felt a familiar warm hand gently grab my arm. I looked to see Ella, with tears streaming down her face, knelt down beside me and speaking softly to me. "Keep going, please," she said through broken cries. "I need you to keep going for me. I love you, Mason." As I looked into her eyes, for just a moment, I felt the pain leave and a calmness wash over me. In that brief moment, I mustered the strength to whisper 4 simple words. "I want to live." I screamed out a cry of pain as the demon trashed back and screeched at my answer, the rest of its torso and legs forming from the black sludge that filled my chest. I watched as the spirit rose up out of me and dissipated into black mist in the air. My vision grew dark and I watched the world go black. As I shot upright on the couch, my hands instinctively went to my chest. I could feel my heart beating quickly against my perfectly intact ribs, no dried blood or scars in sight. I looked up, confused, just in time to see a sobbing Ella jump on me and hugged me so tightly that I struggled to breathe. "You did good," Maria said, sipping what looked like tea from across the room. I struggled to speak. I saw it. It ripped. "How am I?" "What you saw and felt was the purging of your spirit. Things that we couldn't perceive. To us, you were just thrashing and screaming." "So it's really gone?" Ella asked. "For him it is," Maria sighed. "Unfortunately, keeping something like that out of our plane permanently is much more difficult." "Thank you, Maria," I muttered. Maria nodded and went back into her kitchen. For the most part, life went back to normal after that. I had to really patch things up with my boss and push myself like crazy to catch back up in school, but I managed, especially with Ella and my friends by my side. I could have given up. I could have let it win. But I didn't. I pushed forward and found hope. Hope in the ones I love and the ones that love me. If somehow, somewhere, there is someone out there reading this who is fighting this evil spirit, keep fighting. And if you run into some lady who is offering you strange black beads for the love of God, take them.